But just to bring the people of St. Martin up to speed with all that is going on, we are working diligently with all the aspects and the things that we spoke about earlier concerning the sewage water in the neighborhood, the garbage. That's one of our main objectives and priority that we are working on very, very hard. And very soon, we will be bringing forth the solution or sort of working on a solution for District 5 and 6, how I believe the contractors has collaborated with each other to solve that problem concerning the overflowing of bins and getting larger bins for specific areas in those two districts. And also concerning the car wrecks that we spoke about, and I know my good friend here asked me the question last week about my car wreck, and that will be dealt with very soon also. But when I make mention that I'm happy to see Mr. Roy Marlin here, because we spoke a few times concerning the role of GEBE in our society. And when it concerns the Ministry of VROMI, and we are looking at the entities that fall under the ministry or the Ministry of VROMI is partnering or responsible for, and GEBE is one of those entities also. And there's a burning issue that I have, and I spoke to Roy about it, and that is concerning all those GB houses that we see along the roads, those slab of gray concrete that GB just put down and have their meter box and stuff in it. There's grass growing in it, pipes hanging out. It's just there looking plain, bland, and for me it's ugly. I would like to see some paint on it. I would like to see the grass around it clean. I would like to see the pipes and stuff that is sticking out. Something be done with it, because everywhere you turn in the districts, that's what you see throughout the whole island. You're just seeing these concrete slabs put down, and I know I'll be having a discussion with them very, very soon, and that's one of the points that I intend to bring up. It's time for us to beautify and make our place look nice. And these entities, such as GEBE, I believe, have a role to play. Also, concerning the area of KB, we know that heavy vehicular traffic passed through that area from Sol and GEBE. And it's not to say that nothing have been done over the years, but I think the entity of GEBE can take a more community role in that area in terms of seeing what plans and ideas they can come up with concerning the running water in that area, concerning the road in that area. It's one road getting in, and there's one road getting out besides going up through the other part of the property. You know what I'm talking about. But that road has been in the condition I've been for many, many, many years. I grew up in Cape Bay as a young boy. I live in the scatter apartments, to call them that. That's how we know them. And we haven't seen much change in that area in terms of having it looking nice. Again, so those are some of the discussions that I would like to have with GEBE. And also, I had a very interesting meeting, if I should call it, with the managers or the department heads down at the VROMI department, to use a term that we are so accustomed of using. It was fruitful. But a lot of ideas and a lot of things came about. Had a very good discussion also with Tone Chabon Company. He highlighted a lot of ills in our society that needs to be taken seriously. But these are the things that we don't see. For example, a number of our sewage pits that is simply not working anymore, that needs to be replaced, that in a couple of months, if we should speak that way, would simply be useless. Yes, they would simply be useless because they have been there for a number of years. They need to be replaced, and that's another set of investment. Also concerning Phillipsburg and the road, why is it that way? Why is the bricks looking that way? Why is it not complete? Because it's just not a matter of just taking out the bricks, putting back sand, packing it, and putting it back. No, the sewage pipes are not connected. So that's another sort of discussion that you need to have within that area, within the responsible individuals, because you want to do it one time, you want to do it correct, you want to do it responsibly. You just don't want to have it done, and then come 6 months down the line, you got to go back at it, dig it up again, and start to put it together. And I'm saying we need to start to prioritize what needs to be done. Phillipsburg needs to be done, in my opinion, and it needs to be done correct. It needs to be done right one time. Not every minute. We have to go back, dig it up, replace the bricks. Go back, dig it up, replace the bricks. And, I think it's a discussion we also need to have with the Phillipsburg Community Council, if that's what the name is. in my opinion, bricks is not working. And I understand the whole beautification aspect of Phillipsburg and how you want to make it nice. But I could remember as a member of parliament, I would walk the street and you would see people in a wheelchair and they can't navigate through Phillipsburg because it's just not accessible. It's not friendly to people that have a disability. The Amsterdammers, I mean, yeah, how long have we been living with them? That's those green things along the side. I think they should be removed. I think all the pins sticking up out of the ground should be sawed off, cut down. I think we should make ramps for wheelchairs, for people with disabilities. To me, that is more beautification. That is being accessible. That's understanding the needs of visitors and St. Martiners that live in this country and can't enjoy what Phillipsburg look like. So in my opinion, and it's a discussion I intend to have, and also be forceful about it. Bricks are not working. It's, in my opinion, it's not working. And if we want to talk, I believe the minister also showed a lot of ideas in Singapore, how it works, and many other different countries. You can put on asphalt and you can have it blue, you can have it red, you can print bricks in it, you can have the same effect as it is right now. I mean, at some point in time, we need to look at different things in our society and say, we have been doing this for a very long time and it's not working. Let's try a different approach. So those are some of the things that we are working with concerning the Ministry of Rummy. I'm very happy that my personal relation officer is back from vacation. We had a discussion yesterday and she laid out a lot of things. So we'll be in the papers a lot. We'll be in the community a lot. A lot of pictures would be taken on things that we are working on. Again, it's buckling down yourself, tightening your boots, and getting the job done and really starting to get work. I believe Friday, if I'm not mistaken, we will be touring the waste landfill. Well, for me, it's the dump, because I want everyone to get an idea. I want everyone to get an idea of what is it we have created. Come and see what we have created. So when you think it's easy just to take your fridge and your old mattress and your old stove and just pick it up and dump it and forget about it, it ends up somewhere. At some point in time, we need to understand that you can't be throwing plastic and paper and gas and you're cooking food. It just cannot work anymore. And if we are talking about separation, it needs to start in the home. It needs to start in the home. So, I mean, who wants to come can come and take a look at it, but you need to really see it's not just a government issue, it's a community, it's a St. Martin issue. Yes, we can all say, well, why we put it there and why is it there? The fact is, it's there. And it's not working anymore. It has reached its lifespan about 10, 15 years ago. I believe the former commissioner can tell me if that's the case, because a report was made about it. The landfill, waste to energy, garbage has the attention of the Ministry of Rummy, has the attention of GEBE, has the attention of the professionals down there, and also has the attention of this government. And to take a page, or just to tag along, when my colleague, the Minister Emily, spoke last week, and he said they are working very, very hard on the hospital, and the hospital will be built. I can safely say that waste to energy will come to St. Martin. It will be built.
Before I get into my presentation, I'd like to echo or sound off a bit on Minister Emmanuel's comment. Yesterday we had a Council of Ministers meeting. It took us probably a full 2.5 hours before we even got to start with the agenda. And why? Because the ministers that were present took the time to explain a bit about what are some of the priorities they're working on, what are some of our concerns, because all of us have issues that cross that ministerial boundary. During elections, or you always hear about how ministries operate as silos. Well, I'm very pleased to speak about the fact that I think we are breaking those walls down, and Minister of Finance has been very clear. There's many things that, when you talk about it, government always did it this way. Well, why do we always do it that way? If it doesn't work, why do we continue to do it that way? That same philosophy goes to how Ministry of VSR is working. We are going department by department. We are not jumping into our 2017 plan yet. We are going through our 2016 plan and evaluating how did you perform against the budget that you were provided? What things did you accomplish? What things aren't working? How are we going to change them? So instead of just adopting the same plans that we had from the year before and just moving them forward to 2017, but really questioning what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we can cooperate. Many of our discussions within our department head meetings have centered around, well, many of the issues are cross-ministerial. When we talk about youth unemployment, there is a justice aspect perhaps to it. There's, for example, one of the things we're talking about is there's a program that's together with the Dutch Marines where they have a program that they'll work with youth and help to give them some structure, some stability, and some discipline. But actually, apparently, that might be something that falls under another ministry, so we need to figure out how those cooperate. Also, that means with education. So I'm very pleased to report that we are taking the time to really make sure that we're cooperating and setting our agenda for the next, not year, but for the next 4 years, and making sure that we all have our objectives clear and cooperating. And as the minister mentioned, there are many things within the Ministry of Romi that impact the health of the population. And actually, technically, you're correct to refer to what we have as a dump, because if you look at the legal definition of what is a landfill, it is a managed dump, right? But there's many things within the dump that are not being managed. So technically, the correct term is a dump. So, but we're talking about how, if there are fires, what kinds of fire suppression techniques can we use to put the fires out quickly so it doesn't create health impacts for the community. District cleanup, as you know, we have an issue with Zika, dengue, chikungunya. I've noticed there's a couple, I think there was 2 cases of malaria now in Jamaica, right? There's disease within the Caribbean that are carried by different vectors, the worst of which is the mosquito. Actually, very common Facebook post is actually one of the most lethal animals in the world. It's not elephants or tigers, or it's actually mosquitoes. So, working on our district cleanup, because mosquitoes can breed in very small containers, and so all that garbage that people throw out their window ends up in the side of the road, ends up becoming mosquito breeding grounds. So everything we do is very much connected, as well as one of the main complaints that we hear is, and that's, I think, due to sort of a frustration within the community, is they call the Ministry of Health, but really it's a septic issue. They have issue with water from neighbors that's pooling and ponding around the house. It may not really be creating mosquitoes, but again, they're just desperate for attention to find a solution to those. And again, I just like to echo on what the ministers spoke about, and that we are very much cooperating and working towards a long-term agenda to finally get many of the things that need to be done for the community done. 2 topics I'd like to discuss. One is the mediator. I've received a number of inquiries. I think actually there's an article in the newspaper today. I had a visit from one of the labor unions as well, because some concerns about the fact that the mediator is now our Minister of Justice. So obviously that's created a gap, and so there's some concerns about how we're handling that in the meantime and what's the strategy going forward. So we are working on a pool of mediators, so not a full-time employed person as a mediator, but a number of mediators that would operate in a pool, and that would be on a, let's say, sort of a case-by-case, on-call basis. We are following ILO recommendations as we're setting this up. There are 3 candidates that are in the process of being submitted to the governor for approval. And if you look at it, what the idea is that the pool gives us a set of people with different experiences and different skill sets and different relationships. When you have one mediator, if one of the disgruntled parties has an issue with the mediator, it doesn't really leave them any choices and perhaps even hurts the mediation process. So by having a pool of mediators, you do open the possibility that if someone really has a very justifiable reason, that you can choose a different mediator. But more importantly, each of the mediators has a different set of skills, a different set of experiences. So depending on whatever the dispute may be, that you can now choose an appropriate mediator. So for example, sometimes you may need somebody that has more of sort of a social, psychological background, because maybe it's really more of sort of an emotional tension, or perhaps the issue is more of a financial nature, in which case you want somebody who has more of an accounting background, or legal background as well, or all of the above, of course. That's the best as well. We are also working on bringing a trainer in, so that when we do have our set of mediators selected, that there's a trainer that would be in place to work with them to elevate their skills and share with them different techniques. And as a matter of fact, what we're thinking about is when we do bring in a trainer for mediation, that we would open up those trainings to other members of the community, because mediation skills are good for any types of relationships, and I think actually the goal would always be to, when there's issues, mediate them before they become really big issues. So that applies, I think, to all kinds of relationships. But in the meantime, until the pool of mediators is finalized, and we're hoping that within the next week or two, Miss Marcelina LeBlanc, she's been operating as an assistant mediator since 2012. She will be filling in until we have the pool of mediators established. She comes with knowledge and experience, and we're quite comfortable as an interim solution that this will carry us through. The other topic I'd like to touch on is about the new hospital. As you know, it's been delayed by a court case. Again, I'd like to echo the sentiments of the minister. St. Martin needs a hospital. We will get a hospital. It's just a question of when and how much it's going to cost, but there's no question about it, right? St. Martin has to have it. As you know, SZV filed an appeal against the judgment. SZV is complying with the judgment. I noticed, I think it was in one of the newspapers today, they spoke about radio silence or something like that. So meaning that, yes, everyone's very cautious about what they say in public, and I'm going to explain to you why. Within the judgment, the court prohibits SZV from directly or indirectly to sign an agreement with INSO or an entity within INSO with the aim to build the hospital, and prohibits SZV to comply with the already signed agreement or to provide cooperation thereto, on a penalty of $1 million per offense, with a total maximum fine of $25 million. So with a $25 million axe hanging over your head, everybody is very careful about what they have to say. What complicates things perhaps a little bit more is that obviously SZV and SMMC have had a working relationship. They continue to send patients to the hospital. So you always get this sort of subtle question about, we want to make sure, yes, we have a working relationship, but we want to be careful that somehow it isn't misconstrued as working towards the building of a new hospital. So I think anybody who has a $25 million axe over their head is going to be careful about what they say. It does not mean that work is not progressing in terms of the legal case and discussions about how we improve the quality of healthcare, but certainly everybody is complying with the judgment. SMMC, in discussions with them, they support the appeal. As a matter of fact, I think all of the interested parties, government supports it, SZV is filing the appeal, SMMC supports it, the people of St. Martin, I think, support the appeal as well, and certainly the staff of the hospital. Everybody wants to see the hospital get built. The legal advisors for the SMMC are advising them how to move forward. Again, they're doing so very carefully. So the legal advisors for SMMC are discussing how to proceed with the contract, what's possible, what's not possible, and I'm not involved in those discussions and not really familiar with the content of those discussions. But I do recognize and I appreciate our media partners. And I know that probably the worst thing for public perception is leaving that vacuum out there, or as one paper called it, radio silence. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to try and give you a little bit of insight into some of what we're trying to work on, right? So in the court case that VAMED filed, basically they claim, and I mean, I think this is probably a first for St. Martin, right? The first time that I've seen someone participating in a public tender suing because they think the person who won the bid was too low. You know, when you try and do everything right, you try and do an open and transparent bidding process, it is kind of surprising to me that this is where we end up, but it is what it is. But nonetheless, VAMED filed a claim that INSO's price they felt was too low. We feel very comfortable that the price is not, because in the whole process beginning, if you remember, there was a tender process for the engineering support even, right? So in the end, a combination between ICE and Royal Haskoning was hired as engineering consultants throughout the whole project. Royal Haskoning has a load of experience, including in terms of building hospitals. A budget was formulated, so these numbers were not picked out of the air. It's not as if when we went into the process that there was no idea what the new hospital would cost. And VAMED, in their process, they submitted two pieces of information. One was a engineering report produced by an American firm, and the other was a reference to the expansion that was previously planned in 2009 for the SMMC. If you remember, under the time of Dr. Scott, there were already some plans to build sort of an extension to the hospital because the hospital, as we all know, is insufficient. The hospital has outlived its useful life, and so even from 2009, there were already plans for an expansion. And so that was, for example, one of the reference points that was used, as the price per square meter for that expansion was already higher than the price per square meter for the new hospital. So looking into it, and again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just trying to give you some feedback so that the people and so the media can get some comfort that we are working on this. So as we look into it, the new hospital is proposed to have 4 operating theaters, right? The expansion had 4 operating theaters. It had intensive care, it had medium care, it had all of what the hospital would refer to as hot floors in that expansion. In the new hospital, there's rooms for patients, there's office space, so space that they would call cold floors, right? So the high cost of an operating theater, the most expensive square meters for the hospital, is all that was in the 2009 expansion. So when you divide that cost over the square meters, of course the average square meter price is a higher price. To put this into more layman's terms, so for example, if you're building a house, you have a gourmet kitchen, if you only took the price per square meter of your gourmet kitchen, it's going to be higher than you would, for example, for the price of your living room, which is basically just 4 walls and tiles. Same principle applies. Within the expansion, there were also services to, for example, for fire, for the existing building. So in other words, there were some services, including, I believe, a new generator to service the entire facility. So again, you're taking costs and then that are being used for the old facility, including the expansion, and then dividing it by the number of square meters in the expansion. They had planned for 2 floors, but were only executing 1 floor. So for example, the foundation, the structure would have to be a stronger foundation to support a 2-floor structure, but they were only going to build the first floor in their expansion project. So again, that beefed up excavation, that beefed up foundation is divided over a smaller square footage. So just to give you an idea, some of the reasons why the square meter price in the 2009 expansion could be more expensive. So I am comfortable in the process that we went through in terms of selecting the right contractor for the right price. All of the parties, as I mentioned, have an interest. Government has an interest in seeing a new hospital built. There's many specialties within the community that are not available. For example, again, ophthalmology, a critical need for our community. We don't have the space for it. We need to see something, we need to see this in place for the health of the population. Government has a financial interest in seeing that this is built because we want to bring the cost of health care for the community down. We want to see an improvement in quality. We want to see that the people have access. SZV, remember, they spend between 20 to 30 million guilders a year sending patients abroad. By having an expanded and up-to-date hospital built locally, that also helps them to bring their medical costs down and again service their customers, our citizens, better. SMMC, the hospital's outdated, the staff have been extremely patient. The hospital has outlived its life. It needs to be a new hospital. And the people of St. Martin obviously have an interest. One of the complaints we hear very often is about the quality of care and how we need to improve that. And that begins with the new hospital and the staff of the hospital, as I mentioned. And so I would make a request or question to the media. Perhaps it would be interesting to hear from VAMED. What are their intentions in terms of moving forward? Is it their intention to pursue a protracted legal battle at the expense of the people of the country? Because in the end, their interest is, as far as I can tell, merely a financial interest. And I think we have the health of the community, the happiness of the community at heart. So I would ask the media, perhaps ask VAMED what their intentions are going forward if they plan a long, protracted battle over the backs of the health of the people. Thank you.